yes, the admit rate is higher in early decision, but the data are skewed.
Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. My name is Thomas Khalil. I'm the former director of MBA admissions and financial aid for my alma mater, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. In this podcast, I don't promise easy answers or quick fixes, but I will use my decades of experience to help you achieve your education goals. Now let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Khalil, and as we inch closer to August 1st and the drop of the new Common Application, we're going to talk today about early rounds. This is critically important. Early decision, early action, restricted early action. What are they, and how should they figure into your strategy? Because it's a very important part of your strategy in terms of your school list and how you approach colleges. So let's talk about it. Let's start first with definitions. Generally, and almost always, the early round deadline is November 1st. But as always, I want you to check very, very carefully with any school you're thinking about applying early to. I want you to understand the ins and outs, the nuances, the dates, the particular deadlines, and make sure you know them cold. Okay, so first, early decision. Early decision is binding. It's a contract that you're signing with the university and says, if I apply in this round and you admit me in this round, I am signing a contractual commitment saying I will attend no matter what. Your parents need to sign it as well, stating that they understand and agree. It is a binding contract. Now, other options, early action. Early action is where if you apply by November 1st, generally, you get your decision back. You have the right to attend, but you're not obligated to. So it's not binding. Restricted early action means that you can apply to that school early action, meaning if you're admitted, you're not obligated to attend, but it does restrict your ability to apply to other schools during that cycle. Now, this is very important because schools have different rules around where else you can apply if you apply to them early decision, early action, and restrictive early action. Now, a lot of you will hear friends say, oh, it doesn't matter. I applied REA to this school, and then I also applied to a bunch of other EAs, or I applied ED and I applied to a bunch of other EAs. I'm not going to give you advice on that one way or the other. I would say just be careful, because if you are in fact violating an REA or ED agreement, it does give them the right to pull that offer of admission later. Now, you also want to talk to your high school counselor, because some schools have a very liberal policy. Some schools will essentially look the other way and say, listen, if you want to apply ED to Penn or NYU or another school, that's fine. And then you can apply to as many EAs as you want. Other high schools will say, no, listen, you cannot do that. You apply REA, then you're prohibited from applying to these different schools. If you apply ED, you're prohibited from applying to these other schools. So I want you to get your facts straight. I want you to make sure that your counselor knows what's going on. You do not want to go behind your counselor's back. Why? Because that will reflect very badly on you. It will reflect badly on the school. And they might just email those schools and say, listen, this student violated the terms of our school agreements, and we're going to have to withdraw their applications. Will they do that? I don't know, but I have seen counselors get very upset if you try and circumvent them like that. So what are the advantages, right? Because there's a lot of conventional wisdom out there saying you have to apply early, you have to apply early. And when you look at the data, what the data show are that, yes, the admit rate is higher in early decision, but the data are skewed. Why? Because in early decision, because it's binding, schools tend to take students that they need. Okay. What do I mean by students that they need? Well, they might take athletes that they want to have recruited. They might take legacies if legacy applies, and that's changing. So I want you to check that. They might be taking certain groups, for example, socioeconomically disadvantaged groups or international students that they think that they might not see a lot of in regular decision, right? Students that they look at them, they're like, we want them 100% in our class. So that skews the admit rate. And a lot of, let's say, regular students, right, high achieving, normal students without any of those edges come in and they're like, oh, I have to apply early. And the fact is that not really. The high probability is it going to get deferred. And that's not a bad thing. But I do want you to think carefully about the strategy you're taking because early decision is important for a couple reasons. Early decision, number one, cuts down on your ability to negotiate financial aid because if you're admitted, you're saying, I'm going to go. And if financial aid is a concern, and this is why several top schools have actually moved to an REA or an EA model, because it was scaring away students who said, look, I really would like to attend, but with the cost of university these days, I'm not sure I can afford that. But if I'm locked in, then I have to take the financial offer that you're giving me. Now, caveat, yes, if you prove that you truly cannot afford to attend under that financial aid package and they just can't get you to where you need to be, schools will sometimes release you, oftentimes actually just release you from that binding early decision, but that's not a position that you want to be in, put yourself in, put your high school in. You don't want to be there. So I want to be thoughtful ahead of time, okay? But with early decision, I do get a lot of students who are like, well, I just want to ED and get in and be done in the middle of December. And I absolutely understand that. But here's the thing. I don't want you sandbagging your chances for certainty. Yes, regular decision is terrifying, and you might be gripping the edge of your seat with white knuckles until March. That's a scary place to be, and I get that. But don't sell yourself short just for convenience. If you're worried, apply to a couple EA schools, apply to an REA school so you have some flexibility in there, and then you can approach other schools in regular decision. The reality, too, is that for a lot of these super highly exclusive, highly selective schools, sometimes you even have a better chance in regular decision because if you apply early, you get bumped to regular decision anyway. So why not apply early to some early action or REA schools where you can have that optionality in case you get in and then look at what happens during regular decision. So this is really important. I know there's also a lot of talk on the internet, on social media, saying, oh, you can break an ED. It's not binding. It's not this. It's not that. And the reality is, there's a couple things here. Number one, yes, you are signing a binding contract. Are they going to sue you in court? No. But what you do is you damage the relationship between the university and the high school. And the universities will swear it has no bearing. I will tell you in 20 years of being in admissions that anecdotally, it does. And your counselors will be mad at you. They may even indicate to the regular decision schools you get into or other schools that you might matriculate to that you did this. It's a bad look. They can then rescind your offer. You're putting yourself in a bad position. You're behaving unethically and you're damaging opportunities for future generations of students. And I just don't think that that's a thing that you want to do. I believe in karma and I don't think that that's great. So the other thing for an early strategy is no lottery tickets, people, no lottery tickets. Don't throw an REA into Stanford just in case. You're not going to get in. You know that you don't have a chance, and that's fine, right? But wasting your early application on a school that you have no shot at is not smart. Pick a mix of EA and or REA schools that you can apply to that are reaches, but not impossible reaches, and build that portfolio, right? Take some of the pressure off. It feels good to have an EA in your pocket in mid-December. Take some of the pressure off as you head into regular decision. But if you do get deferred, it's okay. You're fine. You're in the hunt. I'm going to do a lot more videos on deferrals. I did some last year. We're seeing a higher number of schools with early rounds defer students because instead of denying them, they're like, what? Let's just take a look at them in regular decision because we don't really know what that pool is going to look like, and more optionality is better for us. So the key here with early is we want to be thoughtful and we want to be strategic. We want to think, does early decision or early action actually benefit me? Do I bring something particular to this school that they want? In the case of early decision, it's almost do I bring something to this school that they need, that they cannot do without if they pass me up? And That is going to be important as you decide whether or not to ED. You also want to think about the financial considerations. You want to think about what your counselor at school says about your ability to hedge your ED with early action schools. Some of you might just do all early action and restrictive early action because you want to be able to negotiate financial aid packages. You want to be able to keep your options open. You want to be able to see, hey, how do I do in regular decision? And I want to head into regular decision with some certainty, but also the ability to apply to nice stretch schools and see what happens. So this is not something you should take lightly. And this is a time of year when you should be starting to build your school list. Building the school list matters because then you can sort into what you're doing early versus regular decision. And then again, as I said, many times before, on August 1st, when the Common App opens and you're going right in there, you know the schools you're applying early to, you're putting them in your school list, you're filling in the basic data in the supplements to unlock all the essays so that you can step back and say, okay, let's think about now how I can best approach this strategically. One argument I do want to bring up for not applying early, in addition to the ones that I've already brought up, is if you are trying to maybe rehabilitate a GPA, maybe a little wobble in there, and you need those first semester grades to be rock solid, you might want to push that off. If you're waiting on awards, if you're struggling to get your testing where it needs to be, just pause, take that extra 2 months, November, December, and then apply in January. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not particularly disadvantaging yourself because, again, when you look, for example, at early decision admit rates, when you adjust for legacy athletes, etc., the admit rate sometimes is lower than the overall admit rate. So let's be thoughtful. Let's be strategic. Stick with me here. We're going to have a lot more on this. But generally, we want to do this early and make these decisions early because that will allow us to have a strategy to focus on our early school, whether it's early decision, restrictive early action, or early action. And then you might find that the way you structure your application, it's a little specific to that school. You're not writing your Common App personal statement directly to that school, but you might shift for your regular decision applications. And so we want to make sure that we're being intentional, we're being smart, we're being thoughtful. There's a lot more I have to say on this. I know you have a lot of questions. I appreciate all the questions that you're sending to me on social media at AdmittedlyCo on Instagram and TikTok. So please keep those coming. I'll be looking for your comments. I'll be looking for your DMs. Thank you for following the podcast. We are kicking off the 25-26 admission season. There's a lot of changes coming up, a lot of unknowns. Stay with me. I'm going to do my very best to keep you informed and to tell you about everything we see that's coming on the horizon to make sure that you are successful and reach your dream school. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Admittedly podcast and download this episode. I welcome you to share your thoughts and questions with me. You can find us on social media at Admittedly Podcast. I look forward to continuing our journey together.